Hello, hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. It is so good to be back. It was a wonderful week, really. Lots of amazing matches. Only a couple of matches that were just absolute blowouts, and we'll talk about one of those today, thanks to a tactics show. But we're going to try to hit on all the bangers because boy, were there a ton of them this week. But kind of speaking of bangers, talk about all the articles that you've been writing, Alex. How are you, buddy?
Yeah, can't complain. Saw some Henny Derby action this weekend
I mean,
in
it was a
person.
fun match. I mean,
It
it wasn't
was.
fun for you, but for a neutral, it was awesome.
Yeah, we'll get to that one shortly.
We sure will. Ryan, you've also been putting out some amazing content that if people aren't checking out on the old Blue Sky, that they absolutely should. But how are you?
Doing well, enjoying some US Open Cup action tonight, which I can finally wager on, which has been great. My only two takes from the US Open Cup matches from tonight is that the 40SC logo looks like if Fanatics tried to start a soccer club, and the Inter Miami versus Miami FC Derby should be named To Miami, To Derby.
I can't unsee that logo now. Wow.
Awesome. That's incredible stuff. Hey, so fun stuff coming from our end. The USL show, me. I am going to Chattanooga tomorrow for Chattanooga FC versus Chattanooga Red Wolves. So there's going to be some fun content coming out on that. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff to come from that. So I do hope y'all enjoy that content as it is happening. It should be an interesting day to see the in-person ramifications of the soccer wars. So that should be a good time, to say the least. Before we get too far, I, of course, want to thank our wonderful patrons and our newest patron. Thank you, Sandy Lester. We appreciate you so much. If you want to get your name shouted out like Sandy Lester, Ryan Smeltzer, Matt Peel, Timothy Meadows, Andrew Towsley, Oliver Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, MOS, NF Reg 30, Tim Knox, Rian Lacara, Stephen Howard, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telfer, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, John Hunt, and Harry Austin. These should join our Patreon. And, you get your name called out. And whenever we get the video done from the US Open Cup, you'll get early access to it. So you should absolutely check that out down below. The early access is our paid members, and they're the people that get their name at the bottom of the screen. Listen, we have a lot of San Antonio people who said they are waiting for the flowers. Well, you're just going to have to wait for your flowers, because the best flowers are the ones that you wait to grow. We'll get to the championship in a little bit, but I want to start off, as we always do, in the USL Super League, where we had an awesome match between Brooklyn and Tampa Bay Sun, where Brooklyn cannot seem to buy a win to save their life. But let me tell you, it has been really cool to see the kind of growth they've had since they're going to the new stadium. The fan support looks awesome. It looks like a good time. But the Tampa Bay Sun, despite them sharing the spoils, are the ones that feel like they walked away with all three, because basically at the death, you get a game-winning goal from Natasha Flint to make it 2-2. Just an absolutely awesome match out in the Super League. Anybody want to go? Go for it? No? Yay, nay?
Yeah, I'll start with this one. Natasha Flint, obviously, with the brace to have this one. And if we're going to reference teams being given their flowers, the Tampa Bay Sun, which would help flowers grow, it's where I thought you were doing the segue, Kaler, or has moved within 3 points of a playoff spot here in the Super League, and in a match where they outshot Brooklyn here and had basically every time they went down to trail, they came back and got the result here. And if you're Brooklyn, your thing is like, my God, when is it going to come? Because they've still gone through the spring season looking for that first victory, and to have basically the conceding goal here at 90+4, they really have to feel unlucky about the draw.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for Brooklyn, and we'll definitely give all the flowers to the Sun, but with Brooklyn, it felt like it was coming. It felt like it was there. Mackenzie George looked awesome over on the right-hand side. Phil Potts is really making her impact, joining the club. And it felt like on the wings, it was looking really good. Both their goals came from going out wide and putting a ball across the space and someone to run onto it at either the front of the box or at the back post. And they were really able to move on those winged areas. And it really felt like that was where Brooklyn was making their mark a bit, and um, they were really able to influence the game that way. I think what you're really losing if you're Brooklyn is just that central presence because you can do, death by 1,000 crosses. They got 2 goals out of it. The defense continues to look suspect at times, but you can live by death by 1,000 crosses. But you also have to have another trick up your sleeve, a trick that they had at the beginning of the season. Meanwhile, I mean, the Tampa Bay Sun looked awesome in what they were able to do. They were creating stuff out wide. They're creating stuff in the middle. Their set pieces looked absolutely fantastic. It looked like a real total display out of Tampa Bay, other than a couple defensive miscues.
And if you're Brooklyn right now, you have a matchup against Spokane on Thursday, a team that's currently outside the playoff spot. But you're kind of looking over your shoulder right now, looking at Fort Lauderdale just a point back. You're looking at Dallas Trinity. You're looking at Tampa Bay, who's now, as I mentioned, pulled within 3 points of a playoff spot. Their excellent work from the fall season was great, but they are very much slipping out of this playoff picture if they're not careful.
It's wild that they're just 1 point back from Carolina with seven in a row winless streak after they won 6 in a row.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Carolina, and they end up beating Dallas 3-0, which I did not see coming, by the way. The only reason we kind of started off with the Tampa Bay discussion is because, I mean, 2-2 was an awesome match, but shock of the weekend overall, Carolina's been good, but to 3-0 Dallas to go top of the league, granted with multiple matches, ahead of everybody else. They played 2 matches more than almost everybody else behind them. And that is what it is, but it almost secures a playoff spot as we are not too far away from the playoffs beginning, about 2 months away at this point. That's a big deal. And if you're Tampa Bay, I mean, Ryan, you mentioned Fort Lauderdale. How massive is this point for them as they are just on the outside looking in? Brooklyn is falling, the sun is rising, and you may be seeing a new team in the playoffs come a few more days.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just looking at the standings right now, I think we've basically whittled down the playoff picture to just the top 5 teams at the moment. I mean, commiserations to Lexington, DC, and Spokane. Just looking at the playoff picture, it's kind of getting their chances are slimmer and slimmer. But there's still going to be a lot of shuffling left to go on this season. And if Brooklyn's not careful, that could be very well seeing them on the outside looking in.
I would also say, and this is going to go on our graphics post, but not talked about today. If you're Brooklyn and you're seeing the Spokane match and you're like, okay, finally someone towards the bottom of the table, Spokane ain't losing right now. The Zephyr look good. It took a lot of the first half for them to slowly figure things out. But right now they look like a team that, hey, maybe if they keep things up, they can make things interesting. You mentioned the top 5 or who we're looking at. I'm going to tell Super League fans to keep an eye on Spokane Zephyr because they're coming. But let's go ahead, unless somebody has any final Super League thoughts, to go down to League One. And I want to start it off with the blowout of the weekend. And even though he is not here tonight, let's start off with a little bit of John Morrissey, USL Tactics, with our USL League One Tactics show.
Velocity have adapted in 2025, using pressure and transitional moments like you're seeing here to become less of a possession-oriented team and more of one that's able to use those breakdown moments in games to back with Derek Waldeck tucking in to help create a turnover. But as soon as Spokane regains, they're working to Andre Lewis, getting wide of the opposing pivot, and trying to find an overload in the half space where they can do damage. By the time they work to the other fullback, Lucky Opara, they've already created that 2-on-1 against a center back. Siobhan John Brown is going to show wider, while Luis Heel can then slide inside, get his chance in the box, and convert to give his team the lead. It's one example of how Spokane has grown in the new season.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, I mean, this was a match where Spokane really hit the ground running, and it was fun to watch. And by the way, people who are looking for US Open Cup updates, I know if you're someone who listens to the match or to listen to this the day after, this doesn't really matter to you. But if you're watching live, you should know that South Georgia Tormenta are moving on. They win 3-2, and the Miami FC just go up 1-0 over to Miami to Derby, according to Ryan. Inter Miami 2.
That word mark is not trademarked, so it's still out there.
There you go.
But Greenville versus Spokane. Now, there was a lot of things that stood out to me in this match. First things first. I mean, Spokane, as opposed to last year, and this is where I'm really having to change my mindset of who they were last year to this year. Spokane was fast, man. It was one-touch pass. They were moving through space like lightning. It was incredible how quick they were moving. I think it was the second goal, maybe, the Luis Heel goal, where it was basically Brown was like John Brown and was moving all over the place. You had Opara and Brown just working together, and then they just burst through, and it felt like they went from one corner to the other in the span of 3 seconds. And it was just this beautiful goal. But also, if you're looking at the score line, what I'm about to say is about to say and sound insane. Honestly, Greenville at the very beginning was not far out of this. They were really creating chances. They were causing pressure. There was a couple of good saves that end up coming out of Valdez, where, a bounce goes another way. If the finish is just a little bit better, if Valdez was just a little bit off his game, it's 1-1, it's 2-2 maybe, or it could even be 1-0 to Greenville. But Spokane took their chances. They finished their chances. And the thing that you saw from John's tactics show, boy, they were making Greenville make decisions. Like there was, oh gosh, who was it? It was, oh my gosh, Tyler Pollock. There was a couple times where he got caught a little too far north of the field, and Siobhan John Brown and Lucky Opara killed them. Just absolutely killed them. And it was small mistakes that they were just ruthless on.
Yeah, those first 3 goals, especially, Derek Waldeck stole the ball in the midfield, sent it to Andre Lewis, and then you had Lucky Opera just sprinting down the side, and then found Luis Hill like wide open at the top of the box. You had Evan Lee looked like he was marking Siobhan John Brown. Brandon Fricky was covering both Luis Hill and Brett. Like they made the Greenville defense just look very confused on how to manage marking this incredible Spokane side that's like firing on all cylinders from all sides. This is the Spokane that I expected. It seems at this point they may not pull a Lexington. They may be the real deal. Sorry, Lexington fans. We're just going to keep using that joke over and over. But yeah, like how do you defend against a team like that when they're playing that well from all angles? Like they were just firing on all cylinders. And And then to have the depth of bringing in Neil Vinyals and Isma Jome and in the final 20 minutes of the match. Like you can't, I don't know. That's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, this is a Spokane team who this is the most goals they've ever scored in a match, period. It's going to be their highest win margin that they've had in a game as well. If I was concerned about Spokane from throwing away a 2-goal lead against Knoxville and then had that concern ramp up with the defeat to admittedly a very tough Naples team, this match like completely alleviated any concerns I would have about Spokane moving forward and like get on board the hype train for velocity right now, because this is a team that I think is going to be very good. And if you're looking at their future schedule ahead within USL play, 4 their next 5 are at home. And just from travel alone, getting to Spokane is difficult for many teams in USL, that this team could very well go on a run. And if you're also looking at odds, they're currently underdogs against Tacoma Defiance in the Open Cup tomorrow, which is certainly something I would consider if you were wagering it.
Wow.
If I am Greenville, by the way, I'm not worried. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I am not worried at all. You can sit there and say, flush it. It was bad. This is what it is. Every team is going to have one of those. But what I saw also was how am I going to word this? I saw a lot of good things on the field that just didn't click. Right. They were doing the things that they were doing against Omaha. They're doing the things that you see all the time, or that you've seen from them this year, where passes are connecting. They're really moving the ball nicely. They were able to get a lot of shots off. They just weren't able to put them on target. They were creating chances. It's just, hey, the ball was inflated a little too much today, or, the turf skipped up just a little bit. The Furman isn't watering the turf well enough. I don't know. You could say whatever you want to today. Ronaldinho wasn't there, so we got scared. Like, whatever it may be, the system is working. The talent is there. You don't want to lose 4-0, but if you go back and actually watch the film, I think you still leave saying, we need to finish our chances. We need to be stronger defensively, but we're okay.
Yeah, they had 19 shots on target. 19 shots with 3 on target. Sorry,
Whoa.
misread there. But still, like 19, they put off 19 shots. And they had, I think GameFlow said that their XG was 1.48 in a shutout loss. Like that's, you're absolutely right. They weren't playing awful. You also had Gunther Rankenberg saving a PK. You had Ben Zakowski. Like, I mean, that kid's gonna score. He's gonna score some goals.
Yes.
He had a lot of shots, a lot of chances. Like, he's good. So yeah, you're right. I would not be completely worried if I'm Greenville or Greenville fans at this point in the season.
And this is still a Greenville Triumph team who scored 3 goals against Omaha on under 1 XG per American Soccer Analysis. Like, they can still produce goals here. You just have one of those games that you just wipe your hands, wipe it off, and just not worry about it.
Yep.
So, if anybody has any final thoughts on this one before we move on, let's go ahead and get some Henny Derby action going on. Where, hey, listen. I know Richmond fans want to see a win. I get it. Forward Madison, and I mean, if we're being really specific, Gebhardt was untouchable. Like, for Forward Madison, Gebhardt was just absolutely untouchable. Your first goal, you're looking at just a crazy mad scramble in the box. They were creating so many just breakaway counter-attacking opportunities. Forward Madison was. And at the very end, Terzaghi gets into a Terzaghi spot, and he puts a good shot on target. And lastly, makes a fantastic save, dives the wrong way, puts a paw out, still saves it. You are legitimately an inch away from equalizing, and it's Terzaghi again, right? Richmond wants to win, but if you're Forward Madison, I've sneakily had some concerns about what I was seeing on the field from them. Not the talent on the paper. If you put Ford Madison on paper, I think I like them just as much, if not everybody more than everybody else in the league, if I'm being brutally honest here. But it doesn't matter. What I was seeing on the field wasn't great. This just refilled my hope entirely. Ryan, you mentioned Spokane and that loss to Naples that they had, and that this 4-0 really, refilled your confidence. This match refilled my confidence in Ford Madison. And if I'm Richmond, first off, you looked good. They did look good. B, Espinal might just be the signing of the offseason. He's been unbelievable.
Yeah, and I agree with that. If I'm the Richmond team here, and speaking as someone who's at the match supporting Richmond, I'm not mad or upset or anything. Just, it's disappointing to lose the Henny Derby, but the way that Richmond played, I'm not disappointed. It was a well fought battle to the end. I thought Madison did a good job of keeping the ball away from that side of the pitch that Espinal was on for most of the time, and that's why you see Matt Bolduc was having all of those battles with Nico Brown, because Madison kept forcing the ball over there. But it was a pretty evenly matched, pretty even match. Lapsley just kind of outlasted James Sneddon. They both saved 3. But yeah, that Darwin Espinal goal was beautiful.
Yeah, and just from a neutral perspective, this is a series that its first 7 games were all 1-0 scorelines, and to start seeing more goals come from this match, something that's been kind of a more recent development in the history of this derby, it's been a very exciting watch for someone who doesn't really have a club on either side of the derby to particularly root for here. But if you're looking at just kind of this match alone, it was fairly even. And like you had mentioned, Alex, just from an XG perspective, but it'll be interesting to see how these teams kind of develop throughout the rest of the year, especially knowing that the rematch for this fixture is all the way in September. I mean, pending if they will meet in the Jägermeister Cup or any other options as well. But it's going to be very interesting to see how these teams kind of match back up later on in the year, and especially since the last day of the season will be against each other.
I am also begging Richmond, someone in Richmond, maybe Alex, this is someone for you just to send a message to you. Give me an angle of the corner kicks. I want to see it all happen, because what I'm seeing, just briefly, Richmond may have some of the best set piece coaches in the league right now, because what they are creating so many chances and they're getting people open. I just don't know how it's happening. And I know the coaches are going to say just how we like it, but God, like, I want to see it. It's so good. Somehow every single ball is magnetic to Chandler Dwyer's head, and I don't know how they do it. Unbelievable.
I imagine they spend a considerable amount of time in practice doing that over and over.
I'm sure they do. Obviously they do, but like, I don't know what they're doing on their set pieces, like specifically the X's and O's, but it's just fantastic. Yeah, I just thought in general this was just a fantastic match. I think that this one was fun. Everything about it was just straight up good time. Also, yeah, pups at the pitch. It doesn't get much better than that. I was expecting and hoping for a lot more barking. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, there weren't as many dogs there as there normally are. I feel like I think people thought it was going to be a crowded match, which it was. So yeah, I think a lot of people left their dogs at home. I know I did.
Fair,
because I wasn't going to bring my timid little beagle into the Red Army section.
Any final thoughts on this match? Okay, let's go ahead and go Texoma Westchester, where Westchester really get they kind of get the ball rolling, where they look good. They look like the team that we thought they would, but it was not without Texoma scoring a beautiful goal. I think it was Asante over to I don't know, Spengler, and then it was
Asante to
McManus who finished it off. Just beautiful goal that I was thinking, hey, maybe Texoma has something that I didn't realize. Maybe they underestimate the league, and then Westchester actually started attacking, and then we saw Texoma and how they underestimated the league a little bit. Just to be honest, it Westchester just looked absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, where you end up getting at the very end just one of my favorite goals, and it was really simple, but you saw what Bolaños brings to you and your team. Just that late run, pass it across, there it is. You had a lot of fun just play between both of the Powders. That's always cool seeing both of them on the pitch at once. Like that's just
both had
fun.
an assist.
Both had an assist. You had McGlynn who gets a goal. You get Adwale who gets a goal for himself, and it's a 3-1 win for Westchester. And they didn't look like they were fully clicking, and they looked so dangerous. If I'm League One, I'm scared.
Yeah, I think a lot of us had rated Westchester pretty highly coming into the season. And kind of like Spokane, it's like, if they're gonna ease into it, but I think they're gonna end up being a contender for top 4. Very early in the season to say that, but I did like that Texoma they are showing some moments of brilliance, even if they're not sustaining it through an entire match. So hopefully they can build on that and stop competing for that wooden spoon this early in the season. But yeah, Westchester is not going to call it an easy win, but it wasn't a particularly difficult one either. One thing I have to say, Texoma, that car alarm sound that you play when the opponents score, can you not? I don't even think your fans like that. I saw like on the broadcast, when they started playing, I saw one of the fans go like this. You guys know what I'm talking about? Did you hear it?
Wait. So I watch almost every single match with the audio off just because I have so many matches on at once. I had no idea that was a thing.
Yeah, when
That's
the opposing team scores at Texoma, they play this like car alarm, like one of the most annoying shrill car alarm sounds too. Like not even like a honk. It was like, it's bad. Like it's
Is this like I mean, on one hand, I'm trying to think if I'm a player, do you almost get unmotivated to score because you don't want to hear it? Or do you want to compile the misery score? So not only are the fans mad, but they're just like really mad, Like, not only are we losing, but I'm having to listen to this car alarm.
Yeah, I don't know who thought that was a good idea and where is there precedent for this? Like, are there any other teams that play an annoying sound when the opponent scores?
I mean, they've heard that sound presumably 7 times already, given that their 3 home games have seen 7 goals go into the back of their own net to their own 2.
They're at home and they hear a car alarm go off and they're covering their ears like they got scored on again. It kind of reminds me of when Tormenta's stadium first opened up and they had the tornado siren for all their home goals. And I just imagine like the 86-year-old lady at home, just a couple miles down the road, just being like, I didn't know. I'd get to your safe place, respect the polygon, just like just ducking for cover. Crazy. No, that's insane.
But I guess looking at this from Texoma's perspective, their next just like their next few games in the league just aren't going to get much easier. You have Naples, we have the aforementioned Spokane, Ford Madison. You have your first Jägermeister Cup match against what looks like a rather competent El Paso team this year versus what they were last year. Charlotte is going to be, it depends on which Charlotte shows up. That's not an easy kind of stretch of games to get them through to May, which I stopped short of that next one because the next game on May 10th is a trip to play AV Alta. Who knows if that'll be a wooden spoon battle at that fixture moment. But yeah, I think this is they've been dealt a really tough hand to open the season.
I mean, this is the beauty of where League One is right now. You're going to have a good team, multiple good teams left out of the playoffs this year. Last year it was the top 6, really the top 4. You're like, these are the good teams of League One, and then everybody else was just bloodbath, just fighting each other, actively trying not to get in at times. Like, it was bad. This year, it's a tight race. You're looking at, for my opinion, 2 teams at the bottom. You're looking at Texoma and you're looking at Chattanooga. Everybody else, it looks like there's remnants of hope. AV Alta's kind of on the line for me, but even then, there's quality on that team. At the very least, they're going to accidentally run into a ton of wins this year because there's talent on that pitch. I think that if you're Texoma, you're hoping that some of these guys that you took a chance on really come through, that they really show what they can do, and maybe that, home support can really get behind them and galvanize the team a bit and force some mistakes, force some wins. But from what we're seeing early on, I don't want to tell Texoma fans to just go ahead and look to next year because that's mean and messed up. But maybe start looking at the Jägermeister Cup.
Throw Solomon Asante up there and see what he still has.
Hey, he looked pretty good, though.
He did. He did.
Are we about ready to go on to the championship?
Yeah, one only other thing I have to say about Texoma, it's going to be a little bit even more difficult because they're going to be without Ajmer Spingler next week. He got a red at the end of the match, and he was one of the bright spots on the team.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead, go down to our USL Championship Tactics show, and I'm going to cover up my ears because it makes me sad.
Pittsburgh is incredibly good about controlling tight spaces with their midfield, and the way they counterpressed and broke on their game-sealing goal against Birmingham this weekend was evidence. You see how the 4-2-3-1 narrows in, tightens up, and makes sure that Birmingham, as they get this knockdown of a long restart, aren't really able to progress because of the shape of the midfield. As soon as the turnover is created, Pittsburgh keeps breaking. They're pushing numbers forward, getting 4 players into a tight area, ultimately forcing Birmingham to overreact, step to the ball carrier, and thereby allow Danny Griffin to get through and score that game-sealing goal. It's a very classic play for Pittsburgh, direct, intentional, and unbelievably organized.
And this match was a landmark match where I am trying to find it now, but I believe this was the Riverhounds' 100th win at Highmark, and this was a big moment for Bob Lilly, and it's well over 100 matches because, I mean, he is the best coach in the USL, like ridiculously. Or not even just USL, but just US soccer. Pittsburgh absolutely dominated Birmingham every single time. Like they just are just so good. Pittsburgh are just so good. They absolutely dominated. Birmingham went with a very compact system purposefully, which is an insane thing to do against a Bob Lilly team who is very good in the condensed areas. And they made him pay. Robbie Mertz was the man of the match for what he was doing on set pieces and what he was doing off the ball, on the ball. Everything he was doing was awesome. The vibes looked awesome at Highmark. By the way, Augie Williams turned photographer. I don't know if anybody saw that, but during the first goal that Robbie Mertz scored, he took someone's camera who was a team photographer and just started taking photos. I think he took the team photographer's camera and just ran away with it and was taking photos of Robbie Mertz, which is hilarious. But yeah, just big win for Pittsburgh. And Birmingham, you're asking even more questions.
Yeah, and from this series, the scoreline I wouldn't say it was necessarily an unexpected one. This is a Birmingham team who hasn't beaten Pittsburgh, especially in Highmark of all places, but haven't beaten the Pittsburgh Riverhounds since Top Gun Maverick was in theaters. But you're also looking at a Birmingham Legion team who's in the bottom 5 of XG goals scored per American Soccer analysis entering this year. And Kaylor, I know you had a lot of questions kind of at least surrounding this match. This was a Birmingham team who only put 0.62 XG on the board. And I guess the question is, like, where is it kind of like pointing to this season? What's the goal? I mean, you have a front three that should be scoring and should be doing well, but what's kind of been the concern?
All of it. You're still coming back from Danny Trejo with concussion. You're still dealing with Tyler Pasher, who has been out with undisclosed injury. You're dealing with just a lot of missing pieces. Your captain and 5-year member of the team, Fanuel Kavita, has been out with injury. You're looking at a lot of injuries, which is not really an excuse, but it is what it is. And this has been a Birmingham team who's been underperforming for a long time. They are very stagnant. They are very slow, despite having one of the fastest set of players on the team or in the league. When you look at a Preston Taborteca, when you look at Ronaldo Damas, when you look at a Danny Trejo, who hasn't been able to play, when you look at a Tyler Pasher, you look at all those players and they're fast. That's a fast team, but they actively choose not to utilize their speed. They're just pragmatic, and it's confusing. I don't know why they're doing it, but I don't know. Maybe the answer is Danny Trejo, Tyler Pasher are back. Someone like a Preston is relegated to the bench and is the best super sub in the league. That could all fix everything. And we're walking away laughing about how Legion are winless through the first 4, but seems unlikely right now.
And at least on the horizon to end the month of April, you have a trip to Hartford, and then you're hosting Chattanooga Red Wolves in the first Jägermeister Cup match. That's 2 back-to-back games that you would imagine Birmingham should be fairly competitive. And we'll mention it once we kind of get around predictions and everything, especially for this next match. But this is still a Birmingham team who drew Louisville, of all teams in the league right now.
Also, just want to throw it out there, this is a really good Pittsburgh team. This was a team that I said that was a dark horse, could win Player Shield kind of team. They are really good. You see what they can do defensively. Yes, Birmingham didn't create a lot, but Pittsburgh didn't let them create a lot. What they were able to do just defensively was great. I mean, you saw it in the tactics show, what they were able to do pressing-wise and just take away any kind of space for Birmingham was incredible. And while Birmingham did not do a great job of building around it, also, I don't know many teams that can. And when you couple that with an Augie Williams, who's still looking for his first goal at Highmark, what he was doing off the ball was amazing. Robbie Mertz, Danny Griffin are looking absolutely fantastic. Junior A2 has been just a menace out there. This is you also had Walty, who has been fantastic as well. This is a really, really good Pittsburgh team who's going to be dangerous. By the way, a quick U.S. Open Cup update. I do believe that Charlotte Independents are just scored, and they are going to be moving on to the 3rd round of the U.S. Open Cup, unless I'm looking at this wrong.
They scored.
Any final thoughts on this
93rd minute.
Goodness gracious. So, any final thoughts on this one before we move? No. All right. Well, let's go ahead, and before we get to our set piece tactics show, or just kidding, not set piece, we're going to go to Lexington. Before we go to Lexington, I need to tell you about our wonderful, awesome sponsors, Equip Studios. So first off, shout out Equip Studios. They came out with an awesome kit for the Brickyard Brigade, which is the supporters group in Indy. And if you did not see the kit that they released, you should, because your SG, your supporters group, can do the absolute same. And I don't know if the Brickyard Brigade told them that the USL Show sent them. But if your that the USL Show sent them, you don't pay $40 per kit. You pay $35 for some of the best customized kits in the game. If you're someone who's 6XL, they got a kit for you, and it'll fit you great. If you're someone who's itty bitty, hey, they have a kit that will fit you, and it's going to be awesome. It feels great. It looks great. I mean, I keep pulling it up mainly because, hey, listen, Austin, whenever the West Junction kits come out, I'm going to ask for one. Thanks. But this is one of my favorite kits. I said it before. I was wearing this kit long before they sponsored us because it looks good. My wife says I look good in it, and it's comfy. It makes me happy, and I believe that Equip Studios will make you happy as well. Fully customized. Check out equipstudios.com. Tell them the USL Show sent you, and you'll get each kit for $35. Also, we're going to be using Equip Studios to make the USL Show kit for us to go to Portland, Maine. All right, let's go ahead and talk Lexington and San Antonio, where Lexington goes up 2-0. They look absolutely fantastic. And then I don't want to say it unravels because it really doesn't unravel for Lexington. San Antonio is honestly just that good. San Antonio, they get a goal back, an amazing wonder goal to start it off, and then you get a PK called against you, and then Jake LaCava scores the game winner in the 82nd minute. I'm looking at this match, and I know that Lexington fans are listening to this, and they're like, we only get talked about when we lose or when we don't do well. But like, I thought Lexington played great. San Antonio just played better. And is there a conversation that San Antonio is the best team in the West?
I mean, is the monster mentality San Antonio team back? They're still the only team right now in the Western Conference without a defeat on the season. That's 4 wins on the board. And to come back from 2 goals down to have it tied at halftime and then to get the winner in the second half was just a tremendous performance from a Lexington team who probably would be hard done by that. They don't get the 3 points here or don't even get a point out of this one. But San Antonio has just looked phenomenal to start this season. And I will say I did pick San Antonio to win this weekend in my USL odds article, and it got me very nervous when they went down 2-0 to open it, but I held out and I was able to get the cash out at the end eventually. But if you're Lexington, I don't want to say it's any cause for over concern. You're upset you didn't get the 3 points here, but you're still leading the league in XG created at the moment. This was just one that you ran into a team that is kind of finding their monster mentality again.
Yeah, I thought Lexington was probably the better looking team overall in this match. And Richard Sanchez had a few quality saves there in the second half that kept San Antonio in this. But yes, I do say nice things about Lexington sometimes.
I will say, when I say I'm going to give my flowers to San Antonio, I'm specifically saying I'm going to give my flowers to Richard Sanchez because I might have been the meanest person on the planet to him for his entire time in Hartford. I don't think there was a meaner person to Richard Sanchez than me. I just really don't. And he has been awesome. I mean, seriously, he's been so good to start off this season. And yes, the defense in front of him has been awesome. Tainter and Cronale have been great. One person that kind of entered the lineup was Reese Buckmaster, which he played right back for them, I do believe. And it's nice to see him really get going again. He had that time with Memphis where he was on top of the world. And then he was really bad for a while, and he looked good in this match. In general, this is a San Antonio team that I like defensively a lot. And Lexington showed how good they are by breaking that defense apart. But when you have a guy like Jorge Hernandez, who is as good as he is in the midfield, the best central attacking midfielder in the league, and you have a Hawkinson who can just really destroy lines. You have a Jake LaCava who he is notorious for having that really hot stretch, I believe, for Tampa Bay. But then not really being able to recreate it. But we all know the talent's there. It finally looks like that's being re-unlocked for him. You're looking at this team and you're just really loving what you're seeing. I think that Lexington just ran into a buzzsaw. I know they're going to have some complaints about the penalty call. I think it was the right call. I just, in general, Lexington, don't hang your head. It was a good game from you. San Antonio is just them right now. So, any final thoughts on this match?
Yeah, that long range Jimmy Medaranda goal was just that was pretty sick.
It was such an unbelievable goal that I understand, put the English on it, but get the laces through. I just don't understand why he even attempted it. It wasn't like he had yards of space to line it up and said, I'll take my chance. He was in traffic. I mean, Ketterer obviously didn't think it was coming because who shoots from there, from that angle, through that much traffic? And for him to just really get the laces through, get the swaz on it, and just get to bend the wrong way. Unbelievable. It makes none of that made sense. And I think I saw some people say that's a goal that Ketterer should save. He shouldn't be shooting from there. Why was he shooting?
You don't see that coming.
No one that it was just it's just gross. Just gross.
One thing I do at least want to mention on San Antonio's front is that this Sunday at 4 p.m., San Antonio will be playing Phoenix Rising on CBS at Toyota Field. So this is the first USL Championship match on either CBS or CBS Sports Network of the season. So very much imperative to have USL fans check out this game.
Ooh, might be a bloodbath.
Yeah. Was Lewis City versus Charleston on Golasso?
Yeah, I think that was a Golasso one.
Okay. Yeah, that one should be fun. I'm still a Phoenix truther. I am. There's just something about them that still just screams what's the word? Like Darth Vader, we just run fun. We are the Empire. That's just how I think of Phoenix still. That one should be a fun one. Hey, let's go ahead and get down to our corners show where there were a lot of good set piece opportunities to talk about this year. In this week, there was a lot of good ones. But I wanted to kind of spend time talking about two teams in depth and not just one.
So in this episode of Chaos Crooked Market, we're going to look at El Paso's game-winning goal versus Hartford Athletic, where we have three main movements, two to the front post and one kind of sliding to the middle of the post. And this near post run is designated to be a flick on to the middle of the box. It happens beautifully. It finds its target and into the back of the net. Now, I would add a back post run if I were El Paso. That way, if this ball were to go all the way across the face of goal, it's an easy tap in and securing the goal. Now, on the Hartford side, you have 10 players on the near side of your post, and which means you have 10 players covering just 3 players here in the middle of the box. Now, when this ball comes in, of course, this goes across, but you're left with 2 players wide open without anybody looking at them. That if this ball were to go across the face of goal, it's a goal no matter what.
I say this as nicely as I can. That was some of the worst set piece defending I've ever seen in my life. I don't want to. I feel like I'm always mean to Hartford. Maybe I'm just mean to Hartford. I don't know. Maybe it's not a Richard Sanchez thing. Maybe it's just a Hartford thing. I don't know. it's just, I don't understand how you have 10 players on the near post. You stack them all on the near post and you leave 2 guys wide open. I just don't understand what the thought process is there. El Paso did not utilize that set piece fully. If that ball trickled across the net, they would have enough time to save it and get a tap in before anybody could get there to them. Hartford looks rough right now. And right now, to me, I think there are 3 teams currently at the bottom of the East and arguably in the USL altogether. You're looking at a Hartford, you're looking at a Miami, you're looking at a Birmingham, maybe an Oakland. But for me, Hartford's sitting at the very bottom, and stuff like set piece defending was just one small part of the entire pie, which is Hartford doesn't look good, despite having a great coach like Brendan Burke and amazing players out there with them.
Yeah, the you mentioning that they just left 10 players on that side of the post made me think of when I play Football Manager and forget to change my corner routine depending on the match, and I was like, oh, I'm caught off guard with this one. But yeah, I mean, it's a shame that we won't be able to see a Hartford Miami match until September of this year. Or it's just they look rough, and it's possible that they get upset by Portland tomorrow.
Yeah, I want to give El Paso a little bit of flowers. They've looked pretty good to start the season. Like, they have had their moments of brilliance. I think they're a lot more competent than a lot of people gave them credit for being. I think that their attack looks a lot improved. Their defense looks a lot improved. Their set pieces have been a step up. Everything about this El Paso team feels like a significant step up from last year. But really just what I took away from that set piece was just a perfect embodiment of what Hartford is right now. Which is, I'm just confused. Why would you do that? Why are you doing what you're doing? And I'm going to just ask an insane question, and I'm going to throw it out there. And I don't want to go full Stephen A. Smith, whatever, and get into a yelling match with Brendan Burke after a game or something. But, like, if this goes down and Brendan Burke gets fired or they finish at the bottom of the East, how much does that ruin his USL coaching legacy? Because he's highly revered right now, and this is tarnishing it pretty quickly for me.
Yeah, I think it's a really tough legacy question to balance because it almost feels like the Hartford experiment is, well, not going well to start. And unless it gets very much better moving forward, that it's going to end in a much poorer shape than where we are at the moment. I mean, you're currently looking at a team who has just even with Miami, 0 points on the board right now. But we've also seen a Burke-led Hartford team have issues in the past. We've seen them struggle on the field that I really think it is starting to kind of tarnish the kind of Brendan Burke that we would remember. Like if we're looking at other longtime USL coaches, like a Bob Lilly would never let a Hartford team get to this state, or like even in his tougher seasons, he still put out a very difficult to beat Pittsburgh Riverhounds team, for example. So yeah, this is like very concerning if you're Hartford.
Well, one of the set pieces that I've highly considered for this segment is FC Tulsa. They get their 1-0 win over Sacramento, where if you're Sacramento, the build-up play was nice. What they were doing to build up and really create chances was great. They just did not put any pressure on the goalkeeper at all.
None.
Literally none. If you are Tulsa, you walk away with a 1-0 win, where I'm pretty sure, and now maybe I miscounted, all but one of your shots on target came from Arthur Rogers and a corner. Like, I think 5 of their 6 shots on target were from a corner delivery because he's just a stud like that. And they were able to get a game winner 1-0, and Escalera ends up getting the goal in the 87th. And I'm impressed with what Tulsa's doing. They continue to win. They're continuing to put together good performances that preseason I did not think they had in them because I'm an idiot. But I mean, if Arthur Rogers and co can continue to make set pieces that dangerous all year long, hey, maybe don't put 5 on target from corners next week. But if they put just 2, like that's 2 shots on target that your goalkeeper's having to deal with from a corner that might result in another corner, or, something could get scrappy. Sorry, Alex, like it does with Richmond, where it just kind of falls in the box, plays pinball, ends up in the back of the net. The more you put pressure on defenses from those set piece opportunities, when you have a Rodgers who can just do that, it's going to be a great, great match. It's going to be more successful for you. Tulsa's turned it around. If you're Sacramento, like whatever, flush it, just like we said earlier with Greenville, put some shots on target. Maybe this is a different match. But if you're Tulsa, you're like, hey, man, like we're legit. We're taking down the big teams. Start respecting us.
Third 1-0 win this season.
That's how I
with
like
a 1-0 loss.
When did they play Pittsburgh? Because I gotta know. Because that just has that is destined to be a 1-1-0-0. Just give it to me.
In the USL Cup final, they don't meet in any competition at the moment.
What are we doing, USL? What are we doing?
I will say, I had mentioned it in my odds article, and I nearly talked myself into picking Tulsa. I didn't make it the eventual bet that I did, and I regret because I had said they may very well beat Sacramento for the first time in their club history tonight when I published the article last Friday, and I just didn't go for that. But I really think one of the stories of the start to the season is that there are 3 teams that most people probably don't give too much second thought to in the league that are, as it stands, currently in the top 3 of each of their conferences that you have in Tulsa, Monterey Bay in the West, and Loudoun United in the East. These are teams that you wouldn't necessarily give them as much thought, or they were finishing outside the playoff picture at the bottom of their conference sometimes, and they've looked pretty good to start the year.
You're
last week
listener of the USL show. You should be on Loudoun every single year.
Last week I asked, is Monterey Bay for real? They
said
put
no.
out another decisive victory. This week I want to ask, is Loudoun for real?
Phil gave us lads a couple weeks ago of Loudoun always does this. Fill in your S word here. I think Loudoun's legit, but also Phil is right. They always do this where they start the year insanely hot and then just die midway through, and for no good reason at all. I'm cautiously optimistic because what they're doing seems repeatable. It feels like they can and continue to do what they're doing, especially with Abakara. It's just an absolute freak show. That guy is so good. And right now, there's no other team. I kind of put this out there besides San Antonio and Louisville. There's no one that really can punish you for your mistakes like Loudoun can right now. Even Spokane, who we talked about earlier today, yes, they did it against Greenville, but I don't think there's anyone in League One right now who can punish you for making mistakes like Loudoun has. Super League, maybe Fort Lauderdale, maybe. But really, for me, it's San Antonio, it's Louisville, and it's Loudoun. You make a mistake, they're going to score from it. I think that, yes, I think Loudoun is legit, but I'm cautiously worried. Monterey, I'm still going to stick with my no, but I am fully prepared to eat crow. If there's any Monterey Bay fans that are listening to this that want to put up a friendly wager on something that I have to do on the show or something, go ahead. Let me know. As long as my life or my career are not in danger, I'm willing to do it. So just reach out, because I'm still pretty convinced that they are not going to be in that home playoff discussion and towards the bottom of the playoff table if they make it.
Yeah, they did have a weak schedule to open up the season here. Lost to San Antonio, and then they beat Oakland, Orange County, and Phoenix.
Granted, Orange County was my preseason number one pick going into the West. I thought they were the best team in the West coming into the season. So that's a good result for me still.
Okay.
Your wager should be, if Monterey Bay are hosting a home playoff game, you have to record an entire episode wearing the mascot suit for Monterey Bay.
If Monterey Bay, and I don't know how I'd finance this, if Monterey Bay makes a home playoff game, I will be Kelpie for one match. That I'll put that out. This is content, people. I will wear a GoPro inside the mascot just uniform. Which, did I see that they traded Kelpie to Colorado Springs? Was that a post that I saw today?
Yes.
Okay, good. Love that. Wonderful. All right, are we ready to go into predictions? Wonderful. Well, let's go ahead and start off. We're going to stick with apparently my team and Monterey Bay, and they are taking on Detroit City, whom they got thumped by Louisville City, but who hasn't really? Can Detroit get it right against Monterey Bay? Can they get back to their winning ways, or am I going to be wearing a Kelpie costume sooner rather than later? Ryan?
I have this one down as a draw. I think if you're looking at Detroit's last match, they've not yet won in Louisville, and that's almost the equivalent of, like, we're just going to write off that result. And we've said that a lot about teams this week, that it's still early in the season, that if you take a defeat, you just kind of write it off. I'll be very interested to see how Monterey Bay approach this game. Keyworth is a very tricky place to go into and play, and it's a chance for the club to get 4 victories in a row, and it's something that they've never done in their club history. I don't think they'll get 4 victories in a row, but I don't think they'll take a loss on this one as well. So I'm going with the draw.
Alex?
I'm going to go with the momentum here. Monterey Bay for the win. This is going to be their big test. I think they're going to pass it.
I mean, I think you can all guess where I'm going. I am going Detroit. I think that what Detroit does tactically is just so hard to beat, and I kind of hate to throw this out there flippantly because it sounds lazy, but it's Keyworth, right? It's just so hard to come out of there with any points. Maybe this does end up being a draw, like Ryan says, but if you've been following for a while, I don't like to pick draws. I like to pick outright winners, and if I'm going to have to go with an outright winner, I'm never betting against Detroit City at home, ever. I just refuse to do it. Next up, let's go ahead and go a little bit of Spokane versus Portland, where we go northeast to northwest, which I think is, when's the last time we've done that? Was that when Texoma was still in the league? It's been a long time since we've had a northeast and northwest trek, so that's fun. That should be a good one, where Spokane is off the ground and they are really going. Portland put up a nice battle against Naples. I would love to see how many people are going from the Atlantic Northeast to the Pacific Northwest for Portland, because they had a nice little contingency. How do you see Portland doing in their second ever match, Ryan?
Yeah, we sung the praises of Spokane earlier in the show, and I feel like I can't pick against that just after what I've said for Spokane's behalf. So I've actually locked them beating Portland this weekend, and I think they could possibly do it in a 1-0 fashion.
Alex?
I also locked in Spokane on this one. It's going to be very hard to bet against them the way that they're playing right now, especially at home.
If I'm being really honest, I think it's a draw. But I'm also going to be going with Spokane. It's them at home. It's the first big cross-country travel for Portland, which we saw with Spokane last year. That's really hard to do. Like Spokane would go across country, and it was really difficult for them. Portland's doing it for the first time. I think that's enough to really push them over the edge. However, I like what Portland's doing defensively. So maybe they can slow down what Spokane does. But if I'm having to pick a winner, I'm going Spokane. And finally, we have our final Florida Derby, where I think that Tampa Bay Sun and Fort Lauderdale just only play each other. I don't think they've ever played another team besides each other, ever. It just doesn't happen. Where we have the Sun coming off of a big draw, like we talked about before. Fort Lauderdale, though, if they win, I do believe they go top of the league. Gio posts the meme. Like it is a tight battle up top. Can the Sun find their way into the playoffs, or will Fort Lauderdale find their way at the top once again?
I've picked Fort Lauderdale for this one. I feel like the motivation to go top of the league is going to be enough to kind of carry them across the line for that. And just Tampa Bay Sun, even though they're currently looking the outside of the playoff picture right now, they're still on the outside of that playoff picture, which I think is going to be the deciding factor at the moment.
Alex?
Yeah, I have also gone with Fort Lauderdale on this one.
Ryan, what did I say? Because I've been flip-flopping in between. I've got to be honest with you.
You picked Tampa Bay Sun.
Yeah, and I still don't feel good about that, but I want to stick with it. This feels like a match that can go either way. This one was the hardest one for me to pick. I'm going to stick with the hot, I guess, feet. I want to stick with just kind of the people that are just really going with it. Tampa Bay is really rolling. Don't get me wrong. Fort Lauderdale is disgustingly good as well. I'm just going to play momentum, play the home team, Tampa Bay Sun, but I don't feel good about it. Okay. Hey, there was that. We made it through our predictions. Good job, guys. Any final USL thoughts for us? No. All right.
Charlotte is still in the lead, 2-1.
Okay. All right. And I do believe that Monterey Bay just kicked off as well. So that one's a good one.
Ooh, Farolito. Yep.
I don't. Okay. So obviously we don't have that burrito business over here in Southeast. So like if someone could tell us if there are actually any good burritos, like are they good? I just desperately want to know, because if this is like, I know it's not the same, but if I came out here and I was like, hey, welcome to Taco Bell FC, right? Or our local equivalent, like Taco Casa FC. Like, it's not good, but you'll eat there. Is it that kind of place, or is this like good burritos? Whatever. I need somebody to tell me. I need to know.
It was in San Francisco that we know.
Yes, that's all I got. All right. And then Charlotte Independence, yep, still up, like you said. AV Alta versus Los Angeles FC coming up later, so that should be an interesting one. All right. How about some final thoughts for the night, Alex?
Well, I have not watched any TV shows or movies this week. The weather turned very nice here, so I've been spending a lot of time outside, mostly working on my house.
Love that. Ryan?
Yeah, I've still been going through Daredevil and Righteous Gemstones, but I've discovered with having a Letterboxd account now that I feel more inclined to watch movies more than I do TV shows. So like my TV show watching has kind of fallen by the wayside here. But like Alex, the weather's been too nice, and I've wanted to spend more of it outside than inside watching TV shows.
Nah, that's totally fair. I mean, I spent a good bit of outside the other day too. Recently, granted, it's back to last week was spring break for me, so I was just outside, just lounging in the sun. So that was great. Perks of being a teacher. So shout out. Let's see what I do. Oh, I started making my own coffee syrups. So if you ever are desperate to try a strawberry basil latte, I'm your guy. It is
Can't say
it
that
turned
I
out
am.
it 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 turned out pretty good actually. It was a little too sweet for me. I wish there was a little bit more strawberry flavor. It was a little bit too sweet, and I wish I added just a kick more basil, but overall, not bad. Not bad at all. Hey, follow along on the USL Show Instagram and on the Blue Sky, Twitter, all the good stuff. We are going to be on location for Chattanooga FC versus Chattanooga Red Wolves. Follow along with that. There's going to be a whole standalone video coming along later. Can't even give you a timeline because I have no idea what the project even looks like yet because the match hasn't happened, but keep your eye out on that. Thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate you all. As always, check out our Patreon, check out Eclipse Studios, and be nice to each other, consume all the USL content. And for the first and final time tonight, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see everyone again next time.